All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to be talking about automate change reviews in your identity audits. We are so lucky to be joined with some terrific guest speakers again. We have co-founders of QoS Consulting Solutions, CEO Stacy Cameron, and President Shannon Noonan. A couple of the other voices you're going to hear on this call, we have CEO of YouAttest, Garrett Grajek, as well as Senior Product Manager, we have Cher Azam. Just going over the agenda really quickly today. So we are going to start things off by Stacy. She's going to be talking about how are change reviews important to audits. Then we're going to pass it on over to Shannon, who she's going to talk about which regulations need to see these audit changes, as well as how is this usually being done. Next, we're going to pass it back on over to the YouAttest team, where we're going to have a quick intro about YouAttest from Garrett. Then Cher's going to talk about the identity and changes, where I will then follow up with a quick demo going over this new feature. Hold on to all your questions. We will have time to have them answered at the end. And of course, Stacy, Shannon, Garrett, Cher, and myself will be available to answer any of those. So thank you for being here. With that being said, let's kick this off with our fabulous guests. So Stacy, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. So let's jump right into the fun of change reviews. So before we get started, we want to start talking about some definitions because some have so many different definitions for change and audit. So we're just going to level set. So when we're speaking of changes, we are discussing the act or process of making something different. And specifically for today, as it relates to auditable events. When you're talking about auditing has a variety of definitions, but for all intents and purposes of today, we're talking about an independent is key, review and or examination of activities and intent to assess the adequacy of controls. So these are your security controls and your compliance with your policies and standards and operational procedures. And again, independence is definitely key because we want to make sure that there are unbiased results when you're dealing with audits. Let's go to the next slide and discuss the importance of change reviews. Thank you. So I'm sorry, just lost my place for a second. So when you're looking at your change reviews and you're reporting to your audits, we want to start talking about maintaining compliance, right? There's a level of validation and verification to regulations and laws and your best practices, and of course your enterprise policies. Organizations and businesses are going to continue to operate, they're going to continue to grow, and you're going to use tools, and you're going to replace tools with new tools. You're going to add on various business functions, you're going to take away some functions, and the same is going to happen with personnel. You're going to get new personnel, you're going to have some of your existing personnel are going to take on new job functions, and then some of your personnel will mature out of the organization or resign out of the organization. So there's a lot of different changes that's going to happen, and this is normal. These are your standard business operations, and it's expected. And we want to make sure that we can continue to maintain our compliance as these things are happening. And with these changes are tons of growth and opportunities within the organization, but you want to make sure that these established security controls and baselines and processes are maintained throughout the entire process. And not only do you want to make sure they're maintained, but you want to demonstrate it, where you want to demonstrate it internally as well as externally for those with compliance requirements as well. Additionally, you have your identification of differences. So the change review is very important. It's important to identify a lot of the difference since the previous audit. So the previous audit, you've done your verification, you've done your validation, you know where you stand from an audit perspective. And now when you're ready for your next audit, of course, changes have happened. So how do we assess, are these changes in alignment with our processes? Are they, do they make sense? Have they followed our documented processes? If we're not in compliance, why aren't we in compliance? If there was it a process failure potentially, or maybe this is or maybe there's a resource issue, or maybe this is a really great chance to reevaluate the controls, and maybe the controls need to be updated because maybe they didn't meet the current needs. So, and these things are going to happen, and this is a great time to look at these changes, these change reviews, and take advantage of those change reviews to evaluate these type of situations. And then it's just a necessity, right? So they're going to play key roles when you're looking at identity governance, right? So you want to make sure that you're governing your identity access and authentication within your environment, and you're managing all of these things. And if you're looking at your change reviews, you can see how are things changing within that. When you're looking at your secure software development, if you're dealing with code changes or you're dealing with your SDLC processes, you want to make sure that you know how these changes are occurring. Additionally, you want to make sure you're leveraging industry standard principles such as least privilege principles and need to know, making sure all of these principles are still being enforced and are maintaining within your environment. You also want to get into your configuration, your system configuration management, and just various aspects of security and compliance. It's very useful when you're thinking about the importance of change reviews. Additionally, you have your audit. So whether it's an internal audit, whether it's an external audit, you want to make sure that you're adhering to your regulatory requirements. A lot of your regulatory requirements, anytime you make a change, certain things must happen. So when you're looking at the changes that, when you're auditing your changes during your change review process, you want to make sure that you're addressing it from a regulation standpoint, as well as any type of legal or contractual requirements that you may be subject to. So it's a really great tool for your compliance management strategy. You can also, look at the changes and see how your compliance programs are running, as well as, and you can also loop that into with your information security monitoring as well. And then vendor management. And that's a twofold process. Sometimes your vendors require certain things of you, so you want to make sure that you have those processes in place. And there's some things that you require of your vendors. So if you're looking at these processes, all this information is really great and can come through and can be found through just doing change reviews when you're thinking about audits. So now let's go to Shannon to get into which regulations require change reviews. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stacy. As Stacy said, changes are important, but they're important almost in the majority of all regulations and control frameworks. This definition that we put together here, I want to read it to you guys just so that you really get the understanding. Majority of regulations and control frameworks require change reviews. And as Stacy says, that covers various areas: configurations, user access, change logs. You've got so many types of changes that are happening through the course of the year that you have to maintain, review, understand, show the differences, and also show that they're complete and accurate through the course of the year. The big ones that are really through the course of the year that are high points for a lot of companies are your SOC 1 and SOC 2 and your Sarbanes-Oxley. These are regulatory requirements. Well, SOC 1 and SOC 2 are a leveraging report where you leverage and you understand how your vendor's environment is working and is effectively working. So your Sarbanes-Oxley is a regulatory requirement that has to be done for publicly traded companies. And that is conducted on an annual basis. So your reviews are throughout the course of the year. Right? So you could have a user access review that can happen monthly, can happen quarterly, could happen once a year. It all depends on your risk. And you need to show the differences from one review to the next, to the next, to the next, all the way through the year. Now with PCI DSS, right? It is a once a year audit. You have to do quarterly reviews for all your administrative users and anyone who has access to PCI or PAN data. Right? Then you get into your other frameworks such as FedRAMP, CMMC, HIPAA, HITECH, HITRUST. You keep going with the acronyms. They are usually a continuous monitoring. So you can have the audit once a year. Well, CMMC, we'll talk about that separately, but FedRAMP is once a year. HIPAA, HITECH can be once a year, so on and so forth. But you can do this continuously through the course of the year. So you can either have the auditors come on site once, or you can have the auditors come on site quarterly, or you can have them come on every month, depending on how many controls that you want to get through. But that continuous change review is going through your user access, your roles, your changes to the environment, right? So that could be configuration changes, code changes, data changes, so on and so forth. So changes is quite robust on what you have to prove and show and how it correlates to the regulation environments, right? Sarbanes-Oxley is financial data, whereas HIPAA, high tech and high trust is all around your PHI and EPHI data. And then FedRAMP and CMC is all around your federal data. And PCI is all around your credit card data. And ISO is usually around what you define as in scope for your ISO audits. So that data is usually around probably a process or procedure that you've defined in scope. Now, as you're doing these audits and you're required to complete them, what are you looking for? We're looking for validation of completeness. We're looking to see that we have a full population. We're looking to see that everything is showing up. And how can we prove that everything is there? We're doing point in time assessments, right? We're trying to show that last modified dates are there. So if you have a configuration change that happens, usually there's a last modified date that happens to it. Now, how do you know that that's the only change that happened during the course of the year? How can you prove that? And then continuous monitoring. So that's a continuous review all through the course of the year, showing all the changes that have happened, whether it's in user access, in code, in data. It's continuously monitoring all of those different changes. And let's go to the next slide so we can talk about how that's being done. How is it being done? Well, right now in a lot of organizations, it's very manual. Now, some organizations try to use scripts or some form of automation, but we still get into a point where we're still having to put it into spreadsheets or Word documents to prove that we have complete and accurate information. And then from there, it's a manual effort to review all of this information that's a point in time documentation. So you have someone that has to manually go in and verify that no roles changed or roles changed. You have to go in and verify that the users haven't been terminated or have they been terminated. And you have to go through and say, yes, this access is appropriate because nothing's changed this quarter or this month. And then the same with changes, depending on the risk of your environment, you may have to look at code changes. Well, that also comes into play. If it's a high risk area, you could be looking at it weekly, you could be looking at monthly, you could be looking at quarterly, and you could be looking at thousands of changes or a handful of changes, depending on how it's deployed into the environment. And the differences of those changes every single quarter, it's a manual effort. You have to export out a list into Excel. You have to take screenshots if a system doesn't allow you to export it out into Excel. And then you have to go through every single change and tie it to some type of ticket, whether it's a Jira ticket, ServiceNow ticket, or if you're still tracking in spreadsheets, a manual ticket that you have in a spreadsheet. And then you have to tie all the approvals, the testing, and everything else. And that is such a manual effort and time consuming, but because of the regulatory requirements to get comfort on the environment and the completeness that everything is being done appropriately, companies have no choices. We currently work with a customer that has 22 systems that they have to do a user access review every single quarter. Every single quarter, 22 systems. And it's not one system that it's a review, because as you guys know, if you group any of the users into certain buckets, if they have access to production data, all of those groups could be in scope for the system. Great example, AWS. You could have an AWS environment and you could group it with, say, an Okta or an Active Directory. And that Okta and Active Directory will control all the access, but it could be 5 groups that you have to review with AWS access. So it's not one user listing you're reviewing, it's 5. But when you talk about the system, you're only thinking of it as one. That adds on the more manual effort and the more room for error and issues that could come up. Because as soon as you're done with that, you send it over to the auditors for them to go through and verify and say, yep, this looks great, or nope, you missed this. And what about this? And did you think about this list over here? And why didn't you add this list? And in your head, you're sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask that question. Why didn't I think of that? And it's not because you didn't think of it. It's because you were thinking of a specific way of getting something done, and you didn't see the full picture because you didn't understand. You knew where everything was, but you didn't know that maybe that user listing or that change log should have also been in scope. So as you can see, it can be a little comprehensive and overwhelming for teams. So on to that, I'm going to send this over to YouAttest so they can show you how to automate this.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Stacy, Shannon, as always, that was fantastic. They are full of knowledge, as you can tell. We're really lucky to have them. And I do see some questions coming in for them. So keep those coming. They will be here till the end, but appreciate your time. Now I'm going to pass things on over to Garrett. He's CEO of YouAttest, and he is going to outline the cloud solution to these access reviews. Garrett, take it away.
Go for it. Thanks. Great stuff, Shannon and Stacy. Love it. We're done. But let me talk for the sake of it. 1 second, y'all. This is something I want to answer right out. Why we exist. And I do believe every startup on planet Earth has to have someone that can stand up and articulate why we exist. Garrett, well, with your 15 patents and knowledge of authentication SSO, why are you building a compliance product when the world's falling apart? There's this wonderful Kaseya hack, the Colonial Pipeline, the SolarWinds. Why compliance? Why now? Why? Because all my friends are IT. Okay, seriously, I don't know how to talk anything else, so I don't have any friends out of this industry. They're spending all the time that they should be watching the hacks, watching the hackers. They're spending all the time on compliance tools. And that's where Shannon and Stacy are great friends of YouAttest, because they help us understand the process that IT has to go through to meet these compliances, and then share leads this and put it into product. And he's talking after me. So the last reason we exist for audit and compliance, to make your enterprise more secure, because you spend less time gathering data. Next. We are handling the access review straight out. A couple slides ago, Shannon and Stacy itemized where access reviews are part of. We led with SOX. A lot of the emails talk about SOX, but the other compliance measures all require it. So let's detail to you how we do this and how we make it easier. Next. The traditional ways are broken, okay? I'll just leave with that. The legacy products that say, yeah, they can do it. Can they do it? They're fantastic. They're great products. I literally competed on a project where the competitor product legacy was an $800,000 POC. We're coming in at $2 per user per month, okay? And that's at quantity 1, down in volume. We can get you in this and get your access review solved for very inexpensive. Our real competition is getting you and the greater world to stop using spreadsheets. Next. It's mandated and it's the best practice. Straight out, listed out in this PRAC-4 that you should do access reviews. And then that is then translated and then consumed and imbibed in all of the guidances, including SOX, including CMMC, et cetera, et cetera. It is a best practice. Next, Austin. Okay, here we go. What's relevant, and I copied Stacy and Shannon's wonderful little image onto this slide, but it didn't get on there. Not another spreadsheet. That's how it's being done today. That's how the enterprises are doing this. And if you're doing this, you understand. You're manually taking that data, putting it into the spreadsheet, and then taking valuable FTE time, really valuable FTE time on a task that is not necessarily, especially with the spreadsheets, making you more secure. Now, I would argue if you do it through our process, you're becoming more secure, because the actual task, the person doing the review is the right person doing a review, because we have auto delegation, and that person isn't focused on the distraction. The Excel spreadsheet is the distraction. It's like, oh God, is this right? Is this column right? That's not doing anything. He's just making sure that he can hand something clean off to the external auditor. We take all that garbage out of the way and allow the person who is actually should be reviewing. And then he can see actually are the permissions correct. And you'll see in our demo. Next. And we built a tool, not because everyone we show our tool to, they say they get it, right? We built a TCO tool with a CPA for the purpose of helping you sell this internally to your own group, to say, okay, why do you need this? You don't need this. You're already doing this manually. Well, we're doing this manually, and it's eating up all our FTE and contractor time to be doing access or reviews, as opposed to doing our job, which is to apply the administration to the enterprise and to do it in a secure manner. Okay, we have the features. We've been doing this over 2 years. Okay, we have the features. They're all built in now. We have the enterprise features that you need to do not only your SOX, but your other audits. And you'll see with this latest great incremental improvement in state and time, we add on it. We can take a snapshot of where you are today and then compare where we're going. Next. Bottom line, we have a better mousetrap here. We have a system that allows you to do these access reviews in a quantifiable way. Whatever resource you have. Yeah, we have a special plugin. People know we have a special plugin for Okta. It's a great feature. But we also have built out a way to do this with any resource. And most of our new clients are coming to us just saying straight out, we need to quantify and we need to expedite this part of our audit. And we want to do it in a way that's repeatable. That's what we built. Take it away, Austin, and share.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Garrett. Yeah, Garrett did a great job just outlining what we do, what makes us different. Now we really want to focus on how are we accomplishing that. So Cher's going to go into talking about one of our newer features, the state and time access reviews. Cher, thank you so much for being here. Take it away.
Thanks, Austin. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about this new feature that we have recently developed. This was generally asked by many of our clients, that to establish who has access to what in an environment is not a very trivial task, especially when you're using native tools like Excel sheets, as Shannon just mentioned, but it's essential for your security and operational stability. And to that effect, we have this new state and time feature. So what it does is it gets the snapshot, the resources first within your environment with their permissions. So once that is taken, then the admin can get the difference or the Delta campaign of an audited environment. Apart from that, and on top of that, the feature also provides you as to who exactly has made that change and what exactly was the change. So this is something that we have built, which we are calling state and time. Next slide, please. All right, so basically, when it comes down to filters of the state and time feature, we can have 2 filters right now, but this is something that we've just started and we are expanding upon the scope of this. So right now, the user status can be a filter that can be filtered out to who exactly has been added into a campaign, or someone was not part of one campaign at a given time. He's now part of some domains. So that is there, and also their roles and permissions. If their permissions are changed for any reasons, that is there as well. Also, this can be then assigned to a reviewer who can certify or revoke those changes, and the changes are then can be reviewed in a CSV and a PDF format, and the details of which are going to be in there. Next slide. So basically what it does for our customers, and most of our customers say that it saves time for their internal auditing and to facilitate the gathering of evidence which is required by the external auditors. Also, this is vital part of some of the compliances that many of our clients are using, for example, SOX, HITRUST, and PCI, and to document those processes and the changes in the key permission. So that really helps them with this. And also on top of that, we have this detailed reporting feature, which is in both PDF and CSV format within this feature. Next slide. Okay, so this is a typical CSV audit page when we add details about what exactly is going to be in the CSV. So this is that typical CSV audit page within YouAttest. You give it a name and you just give it a due date. And also on top of that, you choose the file that you want to audit. And then you just hit next. Next slide. Then you see to this screen, which is the mapping screen, where you map the headers of the CSV with the one that you see over here. But if you don't see the ones that we have here, you can have the custom fields and custom headers as well. And once you have mapped it, you just go ahead and create the audit. Then you go to the next screen, whereby you have to select the source file at a past date, which you want to use as a reference, that you want to make the changes, the difference from this source campaign. And then you see the filters, as we discussed earlier, the changes in user status, which is the user added or removed, and their roles or permission if they are being changed in some way or form. But once this is done, you see a campaign that can be then audited with the changes as to what exactly has changed between two campaigns. And then a detailed report can be fetched to see what exactly has been changed. Also, this is live now in production within YouAttest, and Austin will give a demo shortly for this feature now. And that's about it.
Thank you so much, Cher. Cher did the hard part in explaining it, and now I get to do the fun, easy part and actually showing it. So I really appreciate it, Cher. I'm going to pause my screen really quick while I do a zoom maneuver and move on over to our demo. So 1 second while I set this up and make sure everything's ready to go. But thank you so much, Cher. And if you have any questions for him regarding the functionality, you could absolutely chat those in, and we will get to them at the end of the demo. But perfect. It looks like we're all set over here. So let me just share the correct screen, and we'll get started. So right now, you should be looking at the YouAttest dashboard, and you can see we have a variety of different types of audits over here. But the one we're going to be focusing on today is that StateinTime. It's capturing those changes. And so the whole idea of this is we want to be able to tell who was added or who was removed from a set of applications at a given point in time. So to do so, it's very simple. We'll go over here to create the CSV audit. We're going to name this one, and we'll call it original so we can keep it separated. And we'll do original June. We'll select a due date for when this is due. And now we're going to choose a file. And so I'm going to pick this one right here, titled original. And this is what we're going to be comparing to. So I'll click next. From this point, very simple. We just outline the required fields. As Cher mentioned, if you do have a field that is particular to your organization, you don't see it in here, no worries at all. At the very bottom, we do have custom fields where you could add this. Perfect. Now, once all of these have been added, we can go on and click Create the Audit. And so we won't go into this one too much because this is just what we're going to be comparing it to. So this is our original June. Now, what we want to do is we want to create a comparison. And let me just zoom out really quick and show you the sheets that we're working with. So I'll pull these up. Here we have the original. It's right here. This is at one point in time. These are the individuals who have access to a particular application. You can see their roles, manager email, and so on. This is what we just uploaded. We have OpenID 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. What we want to do is we want to see what happens when we move over to the newer sheet, the comparison. Say this is a month or two down the line, and now this is how we have our users. These are the ones. We have 8, 9, and then 5, 6, 7. You'll notice 3 and 4 have dropped off, and we've added 8 and 9. So ideally, what we want to do is have a process that automatically catches when these users are dropped off and when these users are added. That's what we're going to be doing when we upload this comparison sheet. So let's do that. Let's create this. We'll name it. And let's say this took place in July. Now we're going to select the due date, choose the file, and remember we want to be choosing the new file, the comparison. So I'm going to click upload. I'm going to click next, and just like before, we'll go through and map this. Since we've already done this earlier, we're pretty good at this by now. And we'll select our roles, go down to the manager email, and perfect, we're done. Now, instead of just clicking create audit, I'm going to go right over here and run a comparison campaign. So let's go to create the audit. Right here, what we want to do is select the source. We want to compare this to the original campaign. So right there, we're going to select original June. This is what we're seeing the differences and the changes in. Now we're going to specify these changes. We want to see, let's do the change in user status. When a user is added, when a user has been deleted or removed. And remember, if we go back to the sheet over here, what we're trying to see 8 and 9 because they're new. And we're trying to see what happened to 3 and 4 because they were removed in this newer sheet. So those are the ones we should be seeing. 5, 6, and 7 shouldn't be showing up on this. So let's go to create campaign and review the changes. It's just loading right there. I'll refresh my page and we'll click into this. And you can see already we have this little exclamation mark. And what this is just saying is the source campaign is the original June one. We also could see it's date and time, so it stands out from the rest of these. Now going into this, you have the 3, 4 that we talked about, and we have the 8 and the 9. And now why are these there? Well, because 3 and 4, the user was removed. And for the 8 and 9, new user was added. So it's automatically capturing this. And of course, this is pretty easy when there's only 4 users, but it's automatically capturing this. And so now when you have thousands, hundreds, however many users, it's going to capture which users were added, which users were removed. It'll tell you what that status is. And now more importantly, you can go through this report and you have an opportunity to go automatically delegate this out to the proper manager, just like that. And now what's going to happen is each one of the users' managers will automatically receive an email inviting them to attest to the change, saying, hey, this user was removed. Does that look okay? This user was added. Is that okay? Then they could go on in and very easily, right here, this is just the different roles they could review. They could certify, or they could revoke these changes, and you'll have an accurate report that you could download at the end of the day with all the users that changed in the given time you want to specify, as well as attested users. The managers will go in, they're, whoever is in charge of them, whoever knows and can attest to their access will be able to go in, say that they reviewed it, and you'll be able to keep track of all these changes that are taking place. That's the quick demo. We're going to jump on over to our questions. Let me just dance around here again on Zoom and share the correct screen again.
Fantastic. Good stuff, guys. It's really straightforward. Team is out there is literally give us the data. We do the comparisons. It saves you loads of times, just hours and hours of quantifiable times to do the comparison, and then you can attest to the changes. It's all in there, etc. Great. Let's go to the questions.
Absolutely. All right, let's go on over to the screen. Perfect. And let me just pull up these questions. Let's find the Zoom chat. All right, perfect. Stacy or Shannon, it looks like the first one is for you. So I'll toss it up to either one of you or both. But this person says they're new to SOX change audits. What is the usual workflow from external auditors to internal IT groups?
SOX auditors, from external auditors to IT groups?
That's correct, yes.
All right, great question. So what is the normal workflow? Well, the workflow would be the IT team conducts the reviews, whether it's a user access review or a change log review. They get the approvals from a specified management team or the owner of the data. And then from there, once it's been completed, depending on the number, it's usually sample based. So say you have 4 quarters that you're doing a review, the auditors will sample, say 2 of those quarters, and you will then provide the documentation over as part of that review. That's really it.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you so much, Shannon. Sherry, do you mind taking this next one? So the question we have here is, so can the state and time be used for any information or just identity?
Well, yes. Right now, the state and time, the way it's being developed, it can take in the identity. And for any information right now, we're just ingesting the roles information. But as I mentioned before, we are expanding our scope into this as to what exactly can be filtered within the state and time. And we look for other information to be ingested and to be audited as well. But right now, it's just the identities and the permissions associated with the identities.
Yeah, I like where you took that. Sure. Let's we'll take your use case and we'll take in whatever the data and see how we can manipulate our tool for the other use cases outside of identity. But yeah, it's definitely something that we want the product to be going into. So it's worth our time to explore.
Right.
Thanks so much, Cher. Let's keep this rolling. We have another question, and this is, so this would be a Stacy or Shannon one. It is change review only for SOX, or do other regulation guidances require this?
Yes, there's a lot of other regulations that do require change reviews. Sometimes they may not come out and say, you need to do a change review, but essentially that's what you're doing when you're looking at your audit process. So a lot of them have, for instance, you have your PCI DSS, you have your NIST standards, you have some DoD standards. They all have a change in configuration management security controls. Those controls require you to do certain reviews or for certain changes. There's also various, and I know Shannon discussed this during some of her, when she was speaking on frequency of how we do certain change reviews. There are most and majority of all these standards have user access review requirements. So there's a frequency, whether it's quarterly or monthly or semi-annually or annually, where you have to review your user access reviews. So when you're doing your user access reviews, you need to review your changes, right? So you're going to review your change from the last time you did your previous review. So you're going to look at your changes, you're going to look at your users, you're going to look at, there's a lot of other things that you're going to do as well to make sure, even some of the users are, they're in their correct roles. If they haven't accessed systems, do they still need access to systems? So change review will go across a variety of your regulatory standards.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stacy. All right, we'll flip on back over to Cher here. Cher, do you mind answering this one? It's can YouAttest do static reviews for any resource with this CSV facility?
Yes, 100% static reviews for any resource with the CSV audit can be done. But also we are looking into other avenues where we are going to be doing the integrations with other third-party softwares. And that would allow us to do dynamic reviews and real-time reviews as well. But with this static review, 100% with the existing CSV audits that we have here within YouAttest.
Excellent. And Garrett, we have time for one more question, right?
Sure, please.
Perfect. All right. Here we go. Stacy or Shannon or both. In the QoS part, you mentioned information security monitoring. What exactly needs to be shown to the auditors, and does this info need to be attested to? For example, who saw that and approved.
I'll start and then I'll send it over to Shannon. That's a very large and fun topic, right? So you have your information security monitoring. Your information security monitoring is one of your security functions, and it's going to be directly responsive to whether you have your controls predefined by a standard or a framework, or if you've decided, or if you have controls that you've added and determined from an enterprise standpoint. So these type of security controls, now that you know what your controls are, you need to monitor the security with that. So you have your security domains, you have your security functions. So within your information security monitoring tasks, you're going to have tasks such as your monitoring that's going to be monitoring your perimeter. You're going to have tasks that are monitoring, maybe you're monitoring user behavior analysis. Maybe you're doing your event log management. All these tasks fall under your information security monitoring. So when you have those, that's sort of where it goes into, are there changes to doing that? So those are tasks that you're doing. Are there changes to those who have access to? Are there changes to the input that's going into these security functions, these security tools that you have in place? So those types of things when we're getting into information security monitoring. You even have endpoint detection and response monitoring tools as well. So there's a lot of different monitoring, your WAFs and what have you. But you have all of those, and you want to monitor any type of changes that are occurring with that, because your tools are only as good as their configuration and the input that they're receiving. Shannon, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I actually don't really need to add anything. Turn off our head there. So no, as Stacey said, the continuous monitoring is part of your process. So, and it's as part of information security is a loaded question because it's everything at the end of the day. So it hits whatever regulatory or compliance requirement that impacts your organization. So yeah, there's nothing more for me to add.
I have something for you all to add. Shannon, Stacey, can you tell the folks how to get a hold of you?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead, Stacey, you do it.
All right, so you can reach us at QoS Consulting on QoS Consulting Solutions on LinkedIn. You can also reach us at www.QoSconsultingsolutions.com. You can also send an email directly to find out more info at info@QoSconsultingsolutions.com. And Garrett, it's QoSConsultingSolutions.com.
Jeez. All right, let's get that right. QoS Consulting. I think I'm so quick. You know what I mean?
It's the long version.
No. We're gonna get this one. Look at that. When the logos match, that's when you're right. Wow. Okay.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Stacey and myself are under the weather on respective coasts there. It's just Stacey functions better this way, I guess. Okay, lastly, team, there's one thing you should know about this product. You know, everyone gets on there and says, hey, that's great. And it's $2 per user per month. That's easy. Okay. But then we hit you with the deployment cost. Not saying never, but we haven't charged $1 yet for deployment. It is that product. It's that product that takes your problem and solves it in a real quantifiable way and gives you these reports for your access reviews and does it in a low cost manner. So great topic, great panel. Look us up. That's QoSConsultingSolutions.com or ping us over at YouAttest. We'll help you out with your audit problems. All the best.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.